This was 2 years ago, when I was 24. In college, I spent my weekdays babysitting for a family, and every weekend, I would nanny for an affluent family who left town most weekends. The rich family generally cleared out over the weekends, leaving me there to watch the two children whom they had set up a guest room just for me. This worked great until it didn't. It was autumn, leaves were turning color, and the chill in the air was building. I arrived at the house on a Friday evening. Everything was perfectly normal that night, just me and the kids, whom I will refer to as Ethan, 8 years old, and Emma, 6 years old. They were sweet, well-behaved kids. Emma's bedtime was 7:30 p.m., and Ethan's was 8:30 p.m. We play with their toys during the day, though Ethan's really into video games, and Emma has an obsession with her dolls and dollhouse. This house was fantastic, on a big estate with a very pretty pond right through the middle. There was a separate 3-car garage, and across the pond was a pool house fully set up for entertainment, a bar, pool table, arcade games, and this gigantic TV. The family even had an intercom system connecting the pool house to the main house. When I settled back in bed, I was alone. I would call my friends, or perhaps spend that time watching a movie in the pool house. That night, I heated up leftover food from the service kitchen and went to sit down in the pool house to dine there. I began watching White Chicks, sending my friends messages saying how soft this job was. Just then, suddenly the intercom buzzed. Scared, because I rarely pay attention to it most of the time, I picked up, and it was Emma saying she was scared because she heard noises. She didn't usually have bad nights. In fact, she slept through the whole night almost every night. I left the food there and ran to the main house immediately. On reaching there, I found Emma had already gone back to sleep. Reassuring her, I went back to the pool house. Just as I started to calm down again, the intercom rang again. I picked it up to hear only silence. I called out for Emma and Ethan, but no one answered. The only response was someone breathing over there. Now I was terrified. I had just called my friend Kelsey to share the happenings, and she said that I was overreacting. Then I saw the lights inside the hallway of the house flicked on. I froze, and before I could even get my head around it, I saw a large shape moving towards me through the window. At that point, I screamed and dropped my phone. I panicked and started dialing 911 and yelled into the intercom, "I'm calling the police." The shadow vanished from the window, but soon enough, Emma's scream rang through the intercom. And it was sharp, horrifying. I utterly gave in there, speaking to the 911 operator. Then Emma's voice came through the intercom once again, calling my name. "Get your brother and get out of the house," I screamed back. I sprinted across the yard and met the kids at the door. We ran back to the pool house and hid in the dark. The bigger relief was that we could see the police flashlight beams through the windows. The police officers came across a man in the house. He was unkempt and his face had the most awful twisting. He was brought to the station and the parents were called. Of course, after that night, they never left them alone again for quite some time. After that incident, I could not work for them anymore. It was too much for me. I can't even think about how lasting it was for the kids. It was a few years later, when I was 32, and this time around, I was camping alone with my beagle, Bailey. It was in the early November, so while the days were still warm, nights were beginning to get colder. I had planned for 2 days of fishing and hiking near a lake. After setting up camp, I went down to see what the mackerel run was like. Bailey had broken loose and ran off to the right. I figured she had seen a small animal and didn't give it much thought. I soon spotted 2 individuals walking into the woods at my campsite across the lake. Now I figured that they were probably coming to steal from me, so I hightailed back up to the camp. When I came back, saw that my tent zipper was open, but nothing was missing. Still, I didn't want to stay there, so I moved my campsite where it is further up the lake. Darkness fell and lit a fire to sit with Bailey. He started growling and barking at the woods. I couldn't see anything, but I put out the fire not to make him conspicuous. The rest of the night was quiet. Hours later, while I lay in my sleeping bag, Bailey again began growling. This time, though, I heard the faint whistling of some individual coming into camp, followed by tramping towards the tent. I tried to settle Bailey down, but the steps halted right outside the tent. I shouted to yell out that I was armed, and the steps slowly backed off. But no more than a few minutes afterward, I heard a scream. That would have made an angel scream again, through the forest. That was enough. I grabbed Bailey and my flashlight, and off I was to the truck. That whole night I spent there, and at dawn, I packed up and left. Never in my life did I go back to that campsite. Now, 1 year later, another close encounter came my way when I had to spend one night alone at home. There were 2 floors in our family home. My brother Alex and I resided on the top floor, while the bottom one belonged to our parents. One of these rainy weekends, I spent my free time watching Dr. Sleep in my room. When the film stopped for the break, I went to the kitchen to eat something. At that moment, I heard something from below. First, I ignored it and moved back into my room, but then, being attuned to every noise in this house, I realized that someone was walking downstairs. I just texted the group family chat to see if anyone was home. My mom responded that no one was. My heart sank with panic. I messaged Alex asking if that could be him. However, Alex didn't respond back to me. Finally, I heard footsteps walking up to my room. I heard the creak of my door slowly opening, and by peering in the crack, I wished it could be Alex, but something felt off. I stood there for a long time before the person closed the door. I texted Alex immediately, and he said he was not home. I was shaking in fear, calling 911. I heard the footsteps again, but when the police arrived, the house was empty. The back door was left open to make someone's entrance easy. Later that night, the motion light in the back turned on, and I saw someone walking into the darkness. I didn't sleep at all that night, and now make sure every door is locked.